Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have another episode with you, Guozi, um, about Confucius, and that we're going to read Confucius together. This time we chose the topic of self-cultivation because, of course, it is one of the most important ideas and topics in Confucius philosophy. We will talk about it, of course, a lot in this episode. I think we will just dive into the first quote. But before that, just hello. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, great. Actually, I post the last episode in my WeChat group and
Okay.
also my moments, and a lot of my friends and my
Mm,
students and also some parents of my students watched the
mm,
video and they
mm.
got very interested in our project.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. We should keep doing this.
Yeah. Okay, I'm super happy to hear that you also got some great feedback. Me too. And also we had some comments already under the YouTube video. And I also made the notes and we'll see that those questions I think that are relevant now also in this episode we will consider. Also in the last part where we will, after having read the passages and having discussed them, then also try to apply the knowledge or to ask whether that's relevant to our life. And so then hopefully we can also consider those. So if you will watch this episode, you can also always make some comments so that in the future we can address what you think or what you will ask. Yeah. All right, great. So do we want to start with the first quote?
Yes, of course.
All right, so then I will share the screen and we can read it together. All right, so it's Confucius 2.4, and you can start reading it in Chinese.
子曰：吾十有五而志于学，30而立，40而不惑，50而知天命，60而耳顺，70而从心所欲不逾矩。
And in English, the master said, "At 15, I set my heart on learning. At 30, I took my stand. At 40, I was never in two minds. At 50, I understood the decree of heaven. At 60, my ear was attuned. At 70, I followed my heart's desire without overstepping the line." All right, so this is a very famous and central passage of Confucius, and I think it's worth going through it line by line or here sort of stage by stage because it's the sort of the autobiography of Confucius and also how he himself cultivated himself. So do we want to go line by line maybe?
Yes, yes. Actually, very interesting is that I taught this autobiography of Confucius in my class in Shanghai, and actually only I think just 15 characters or 20 characters, but I spent two classes
Mm,
to elaborate and to explain this whole paragraph. So the first sentence, the Confucius says that at age 15 that I had this aim or I had this goal of learning. I mean, when I first read this, I think that it's a little bit too late,
mm.
right? Because nowadays, when we are about 6, we go to primary school and we start learning. So I thought, well, at age 15, then you have this goal at this aim for for learning. It's just 9 years behind. But as time goes by, I found that it's not too late. Actually, it's much earlier than most of us. Because what Confucius said is that 志于学 is not just 学, it's not just learning. It means set my heart on learning, means that I make study my lifetime goal. So actually, it's a really high standard. And 15 at the age 15, you have this standard, you meet this standard is quite difficult. And then 15 years pass by. At age 30.
I'm sorry. Can I also
Mhm.
add something? Thank you so much for all the
Yes, yes.
thoughts. what I think he also does not mean when he talks about learning as what I think we often nowadays think about learning in school is maybe learn all the facts or read all the books. But I think that's not what he means. He means more than that, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. The object of learning for Confucius is much more broader.
Hmm. Is it in a way possible to describe what it means more concretely, or is it just so broad that I think it's of course related to self-cultivation, and it's maybe also how to learn to live life properly in a way and to cultivate yourself. But it's not even so easy to say what it sort of means, or is it?
I think the most basically is that Confucius would like to learn the classics,
Yeah.
like the
Mm.
books in Zhou Dynasty or even before Zhou Dynasty, what we call Jing means the classics. And actually back then it was very difficult to get those books because the books were very rare or expensive or exclusive for normal people to read. This is the most basic level. But I think the deeper level is that Confucius would like to know how to become a cultivated people, how to become a virtuous people by learning the classics.
Great. Yeah, that was a great explanation. So then let's go to the next level, so to say, at 30.
Yeah, 30, Confucius think that he would like to lead means that he take his stand, or it's like this is my phone, and when my phone comes this, it means that my phone is lead now. And I think it's a little bit like a metaphor that when people can stand in this society, he can earn his own bread, he can have a circle of friends, and he can build his life. So this li means maybe before you need a lot of help from your parents, but now you're quite an independent individual in this society.
Hmm. Okay, independent. I think that's interesting. This is something that is very important to us in the West, I think. But I don't know if it's exactly the same, or is it more like you have internalized. That's also some comment that I have read that at 30 maybe you've already um, studied the rituals and you have maybe internalized it, and so you kind of stand on yourself and do it. It's not kind of what you do what you want, or that you don't need I don't know, your parents to pay your bills, but more like, yeah, you have internalized the rituals in a way.
Yes, yes, it's more like a spiritual thing than a material thing.
Mm.
It's more about that I have the principles and standards of a good human and inside me, so I will not be easily influenced by other people's opinion. I will not like I don't know whether you have this kind of slang in Western world as 墙头草means grass on the wall, that when the wind goes this, you go this. When the wind go
Ah,
this, you go that.
yeah. Yeah, okay. That's actually another quote of Confucius, right? Also, well, let's not go into that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
do that another time. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So you are maybe you're sure enough. You have your moral conviction, your moral compass, so to say, and
Yes.
you don't bother if other people have another, I don't know, a wrong view, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, mm,
Yes. So you are very strong. You have a very strong mind
mm.
and more about the inside part. So I think your words are really good supplement.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And then at 40, I was never in two minds.
Yeah. Actually, the original text means that at age 40, I will not be confused.
Mm.
不惑 means it seems like I have no more confusion. I have no more troubled or puzzles or questions. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
But I
Maybe.
think we can dig deeper. Is that does this mean that at age 40, Confucius know everything? That he knows all the answers to the every questions in the world. I think it's not that the case. The not confused, just about the most important questions in his life, like what is virtue, what is like to be a good human being. But you cannot expect that Confucius would know what kind of dinosaurs lived before on this earth. That's so ridiculous.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point now, or opportunity to say now, that self-cultivation, according to Confucius, is clearly moral self-cultivation, right? It's not, yeah, we kind of talked about it's not learning just the facts, not just the description of what you can know, but really the moral cultivation. It's about virtue, and he's not confused anymore about morality and what is virtuous. Mm.
Yes, I think because the whole book, the dialect, is not for the people who have some kind of art, like a carpenter, or the people who kill the pork, kill the beef, kill the cow.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the people who want to cultivate themselves, and maybe they have some kind of power, and Confucius want them to have uh, have the same level of virtue, so that they will use their power properly. So in his text, we should not focus all on the I would say on the art, on the basic level of training, but the internal part.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. So at 50, I understood the decree of heaven.
Yes, and the original text means at age 50, I know the order of the heaven. And in China now, we also sometimes we say Tianming, the order of from the heaven. It means that somehow you feel that there is a kind of destiny of yourself that will lead you to do something. And sometimes you try to rebel, you try to do other things, you just couldn't do it, or you do it, but it doesn't go well.
Mm, great. Yeah, I've also read an interpretation and comment by the scholar Slingerland, and he's also collected comments of different Chinese philosophers across the centuries. And what he's sort of argued is that the first two stages, so at 15 and 30, it's about committing yourself to the Confucian way, and then you really practice the rituals. And then at sort of at 40 and 50, Confucius started to feel at ease. Even he interpreted it like this, so not worry, and sort of even feeling, well, not just feeling good, right, but feeling at ease. It's no longer a struggle to always study and put the rituals into practice,
Mm-hmm.
but then also to understand the Confucian way and how it fits with the order of things. So what I've read is it's also about understanding. It's almost though sort of the spiritual side, if you will. I'm not sure. You also kind of talked about it, the idea of Tianming, and yeah. So maybe not just maybe not just of okay how it works, everything, but maybe maybe how it is, yeah, supposed to be in a way.
Well, in my opinion, I think 天命 it means a kind of responsibility
Mm.
that you think the heaven gives to you, or the previous ancestors gave to you. For example, I think for Confucius, his 天命 uh is to teach the classics and to make the classics last longer, to pass it to the other generations, to the next generations, and also uh, to broadcast his ideas of Confucius.
You have Confucianism, maybe,
Yes,
or
of Confucianism. Yes, I think he took this as his 天命. And
yeah.
for us, maybe somehow we will also have our 天命, that we think we have to. For example, we think that I have to become a teacher. That is the call, or that is
Right.
call from the heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
I think some other philosophers in the West, I think they also talked about this.
yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a decree of heaven, right? And Ming, I think, can also be translated as an order, right? So heaven gives you the order to do something. And well, at least in Aristotle, I think maybe he didn't have exactly the same idea, but what I think we certainly argued is that everything in the universe has a telos. So like in how you say in English, a purpose in a way, and it defines what the thing is. So a knife is the thing that cuts, and a good knife is, yeah, it cuts well. And then a human being also has a telos, like everything. And then it's the job of the human being to really do the task, right? So it's in the nature of the human being to already to do that in a way. So it's maybe a bit, yeah, it's similar, I think.
Yes. But I think similarly is because that uh Confucius think that your 天命 will make you have the most influence or do something the best in the world. But somehow I think his 天命 is not a natural thing. It's
Yeah,
something you
yeah,
can
that's
cultivate.
mm,
For example,
mm.
if the heaven thinks that you should become a teacher, but for the past 40 years you never read a book, then I think your 天命, your calling, yes, your calling will just fade away.
Mm. Yeah, sure, sure. It's a good point. Yeah, I think we will get to how to cultivate yourself and what you will have to do to reach that. All
Yes.
right. Okay, and then we come to the two last stages, so to say. So at 60, my ear was attuned.
What do you think attuned mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't know. So again, I had a look at the comments. But maybe first, I don't know if you mean kind of what it means in English, the word, before we go to the interpretation. But attuned, as though as I've heard, is the kind of like, it's very, you have also the word of fine tuned in English. So if you, I don't know, have a speaker or something that you really want to get the best frequency in a way, maybe as a band, and you have a concert, or you really have to have the perfect frequency, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
really at the right, I don't know, it just that you hear it perfectly and in the best way, if I'm correct.
Yes, I know.
And
It means that when you sing a song, your key is so accurate, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it's interesting, right? It's not the speaker that is attuned, but his ear in a way, so
Mm-hmm.
he can perfectly hear. But then the question, of course, is like, what is it, and from where is it coming? And I've read some comments, and I've read that some commentators were interpreted to mean that he was able to kind of immediately hear also the subtlety of the teaching he had heard. So I think this fine tuning idea is important because it's, of course, he's already cultivated before, but it's really subtle, right? Even the most subtle ways of the teachings, he has super fine tuned. And then of course, what does he hear is the big question. And one commentator said that he sort of was hearing the sort of the way of the former kings, or the the role models, right, of the ancient times in a way. Do you think it makes sense?
I think the first explanation makes sense to me that
Mhm.
耳顺 means that uh, you have a good judgment about what you are hearing. It means that about the things that you get, and then you know whether they are right or wrong. You know whether they are true or fake. But I think also there is another explanation because 顺 is opposite to 逆. When you say something is 逆, it means I'm going this way, but you go this way. So we are like
Ah,
逆, and 顺 means like this is me and this is you. So we are
okay.
going the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
way.
yeah.
And I think 耳顺 can means that before 60, when I hear your opinion, I will think that we will have a debate.
Mm,
I will think that we are opposite.
mm,
But maybe at 60 or after age 60, I can accommodate your opinion, and I can accept different ideas. I will not find your words too harsh to hear. Yeah. So maybe it means that you have a bigger heart, and you have this doctrine of the mean. I mean, this is the characteristic of Chinese people, right? We don't go too extreme. We think, okay, I have some sense, but your words have some sense too. So it's not I'm right, you're wrong, but maybe we all have 50% right and 50% wrong. So
Sure.
I think maybe there is some kind of other explanation.
Okay, interesting. All right, yeah. Yeah, I thought, okay, maybe some alignment, as you said, so no longer in no contradiction. But I'm happy that we got some plausible, at least, explanations, because this was the part that always was confusing to me. Are difficult to interpret. Okay, and then let's go to the final stage of Confucius' self-development or self-cultivation, where he said, at 70, I followed my heart's desire without overstepping the line. Do you have, anything to say about that? What's your interpretation here?
Actually, I think this shows a kind of balance between self freedom and the principles or the standards of the society. I mean, normally we would think these two things are a kind of contradict, because if I want absolute freedom, then, for example, I want to throw my baggage on the street because that's convenient for me, or I want to shout, I want to do anything that I like on the street. But normally, if you go too extreme, it's against the law. You will go to the jail, right? So Confucius says at age 50, he feel free because he think he can do everything, but his everything is inside the circle of the social principles. Actually, that's a really really high standards, because for most of people, if you let them go, 随心所欲, they may steal things. They may to, I don't know, maybe steal the bank, maybe rob somebody so they can get the money, or if they 不逾矩, if they stay inside the circle, they will not feel free. They feel that I'm restrained. I could not do what I want to do. But for Confucius, these two things can be combined. They're the same thing. I feel free, but at the same time, I do not go against the social rules or social laws. So again, I think this shows the doctrine of the mean, the moderation, that I do not want to have too much freedom that it will steal other people's freedom.
Right, right. And I think what is also worth pointing out is that, well, yes, it's a balance, but in a way, I understood it even almost like at a higher level, that he himself, through his lifetime practice of rituals and self-cultivation, was able to, well, as one commentator put it, harmonize the dispositions to, as you said, society or the rules of society, so that in a way his dispositions are now even, or what he likes, what his heart's desire is now no longer in conflict with what is best for society. So it's not just that, well, he always does the right thing, but it's almost like his heart is cultivated so that he does it spontaneously, and then without effort, but also it's a freedom in the sense that you having cultivated yourself so much, having refined yourself so much, you are already in the right place, and what you want is in accordance with what is good for society. And I think it's interesting because it's often a very different picture, or it is a very different picture of how freedom is conceptualized in Western philosophy. Almost maybe the opposite sometimes, where the idea is that, freedom means to not be that free, like, from society, and the individual who maybe rebels against society, or maybe not necessarily, but just that your individuality shouldn't be oppressed or forced by some standards of society. You are yourself and so on. You can do what you want, right? And I think it's interesting that here we have the idea that, as if I understand it correctly, the cultivated person cultivates him or herself so much or so far that there's no longer any contradiction between those two.
Yes, I think this is more elaborative of the version that I said before. Actually, this is the same thing, because the ritual is the social rules. That it means that you at age 70, Confucius think that he's fully socialized by the rituals. He's fully cultivated. So he does everything, and he don't feel that I have to do this deliberately, because it's like my blood. It's like the
Right.
air. I just do it naturally, and everything I do, how I eat, how I go to the funeral, how I maybe, I don't know, miss my parents, the everything I do, I feel it's so natural. It's like I drink water, but it's exactly what the society asked me to do. Yeah, so I think you explained this very well. And also I think why there is a difference between Chinese philosophy and Western philosophy, why they think that um, the relationship between freedom and the rules are different, is it originated from the the more basic question, is that whether they think the rules is good or bad. I think for
Sure.
Confucius, rules are good, because they it brings the order to the society, so that we don't want to, we don't want to live in the warring state period. But
Right.
thankfully that Confucius didn't live in that period, because he passed away before that. But I mean, I actually I also have this question. I don't know why, but Chinese people, or maybe it's not so confused. Well, Chinese people don't like war.
Right.
We just
Of
don't
course.
like. We just want one country.
Yeah.
We don't like that. We have to go to the front line, and we
Of
have to
course.
sacrifice. So the whole nation um, have this preference that
Yeah.
if if we have two choice, the one is absolute freedom but war. The other one is uh order but less freedom. I
Right.
think Chinese people will choose two. We would like to sacrifice some freedom to get the order, to enjoy the order, to live in a peaceful country, peaceful nation. Yeah, but I think for some Western philosophers, I think maybe they will choose the first
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would rather live in a country that they will have to be they will be threatened by the war, but they can have freedom to say whatever they like or do whatever they want.
Right.
So that is a very 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 basic preference, and it leads to other questions.
Yeah. Thank you for your thoughts here. I'm glad that you mentioned all of that. I think, yeah, of course, it has to do with the culture, also with the philosophy as we're reading here. I could imagine that also in Chinese history, right? China was for the longest part not unified, and yeah, you had the Warring States period, which admittedly came after Confucius, but yeah, you always had this idea that chaos is not something that's good, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the West, it's often really the hero, or the person who's really kind of like to be admired is maybe the person who dares to be courageous and kind of confront the maybe the norms, the society that is oppressive. But I think what is also, I think, sure, these are the emphasis, what is the emphasized in different cultures. But I'm also glad that you mentioned it, because I think they're not. I don't think that they're always contradictory. I think it's just that of course, if you have good rules and, you know, if you have good rules that are good for society, then I think many people also in the West could agree that this is a good thing, you know. And then I would assume that this is the right thing to do, that those rules of societies or norms that make sense, that are good for most people, is probably a good idea to preserve or even to internalize. And of course, we do that, for example, when we raise children in a very basic way. And at the same time, yeah, if you have some rules that are really bad and you have a really bad ruler, for example, I think, if I'm correct, Confucius also said that if you have a very bad ruler, then there is a right to rebellion. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Or is it from Mencius?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I just
I think
thought of it.
mm,
Maybe it's Mencius, yeah, his
yeah,
most prominent student. Yeah, maybe. But so I think, of course, so that's, I think, how I at least think about it. That yes, of course, you have this different problems or different ways of living are emphasized, but I think it's not fundamentally opposed always. It's just that I think, yeah, as you said very well, it depends on whether the rules are good or not, maybe.
yeah,
And I also guess that here, in when Confucius talks about having cultivated himself, not overstepping the line, it's always moral cultivation, right? It's not that he's the best obedient person
yeah,
who just follows the random rules of some bad ruler, in a way, I
yes,
would assume.
yeah. So there is a presumption about Confucius' idea is that the ruler has to be good.
Right,
So
right.
everything makes sense because if the ruler is bad and then all the social rules are bad, and
Sure.
Confucius, I think maybe he would not say that we should absolutely obey these kind of rules, but it's quite dangerous, right? Because if we say that we can choose whether to obey it or not, then it has this danger of rebellion. So Confucius will not say this easily, will not say that, okay, you can judge by yourself, because for most people, they don't, at least I think Confucius think that they don't have the ability to tell whether the rules are good or bad. So he only asked the 君子
Right,
to obey this, to have this kind of judgment.
right. Yeah, just a cultivated person. Yeah. But again, I think also this, I mean, I also invest in philosophy. Um, in this age, there was also the idea that, or in Plato, you also have the idea that, yeah, you have the philosopher king. Of course, there are people who cannot do that, and so on. And yeah, perhaps we do seem to think about it a bit differently today. Yeah, I think that was already quite a good and very holistic discussion. Do we want to turn to the next paragraph?
Yes.
All right, so I will share the screen again. Okay. Okay, let's go to passage 5.3. 5.13, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see it now. 子贡曰：夫子之文章，可得而闻也；夫子之言信与天道，不可得而闻也。
Zongkung said, one can get to hear about the master's accomplishments, but one cannot get to hear his views on human nature and the way of heaven. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I think this is also linked to the former autobiography of Confucius. Is that when he said he at age 15 he has this set his heart on learning, and what things do he want to learn? I think this paragraph has some supplement. Is that although he would like to learn the classics in Zhou dynasty, but he would not like to learn something about human nature or something like the prediction of whether we will have a good year or bad year, this kind of things. So I think this is because that Confucius is a very down to earth philosopher, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because
Mm-hmm.
what he focused is always about how we live on this in this society, how we treat the people that we can see and treat every day, and how to live a better life, how to become a virtuous people, uh, but not to use our thoughts or our energy uh, to think about those very abstract things like, is human nature good, is human nature bad? But unfortunately some students in the later generations, they just debate about these issues,
Yeah.
forever, like Mencius and Xunzi, right? they
Right.
will
Right.
they will always talk about it. Well, human nature is good, human nature is bad. But Confucius actually he had some comment on this issue, but he only said that he think that human nature is close. It's like your human nature and my human nature are close, but he did not say very clearly, is our human nature good or bad. He just say that actually we have the same we have same start point, right? Like we are having a marathon. We start from the same line, but why later we maybe you run 10 miles, but I can only run 5 miles? Why? And the reason is that our cultivation is different. For example, maybe your parents urge you to run every day, so you can run 10 miles, but I'm too lazy, and my parents just didn't care about me, so they don't encourage me to do this, so I can only run 5 miles. Of course, the miles is a metaphor for cultivation, right? Because although we have the same starting point, but you cultivate yourself uh, per, like day by day. So later you have higher virtue level. But maybe for other people, he just think that, well, I can become a very good carpenter, and that is enough. So I do not need to be a virtuous people because that will not help me to earn some money. Why should I do that? It's so it just um it's so useless. So maybe he just have only 5 miles of his virtuous journey.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think also I could relate to you saying that Confucius is a very down to earth philosopher. I also once read commentary of Feng, so a Chinese philosopher of like lived roughly 100 years ago, and I think he
Mm-hmm.
made this comparison of like I think Christianity and Buddhism of sort of being um, philosophies or religions that are kind of like in the in another world in a way, right? You want to come to heaven or to nirvana,
Mm-hmm.
and here we see it. He called it, I think, this worldliness, or I don't remember exactly the name. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
in the world, then also with other people, as we will find out, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it's not also theories are not so important. Um, it's interesting because I also has had this question, as you said, Mencius and Sinsa. Yeah, okay, but then if we have self cultivation, does it mean that we have to? So human nature is almost like can be just changed. So we don't have any importance of the nature and the genes and everything. And I was already kind of caught up in this theorizing. But as he says, or it seems to say, it's not that important, and we can also just focus on um, what is in our control, right? So I think this is also one comment that I read. So maybe, you know, human nature and the way of heaven or heaven, maybe they are sort of out of our control. It's just what we are either given or what's out of our control. So maybe let's just focus on what we can do. So here we have the master's accomplishments.
Yes, yes. I think you mentioned Feng, and he has a very famous book called A Short Introduction to Chinese Philosophy, right? That book, 中国哲学简史. And I think what he was talking about is that Confucius just more in this word. Actually, I think there is a quote from Confucius. He said that 未知生焉知死 means if we do not know, if we haven't know about living, how do we know about death?
Right.
So obviously he thinks that living is more important than death, and I think this is a huge preference for Chinese people.
Right.
Although that we think that funeral is important, right? I think that on the Qingmingjie we will go to the tomb of our ancestor and we will bring some fruits, bring something for them. But overall, I think Chinese people still we take the living more seriously than the death. And I think this is quite a lot of part of this is because of Confucius preference. And also I think another point is also linked to our theme, to our topic, cultivation, is that when you spend a lot of time studying about human nature or the heaven, the ghost, it do no help for your cultivation, because you cannot say that I study human nature all day and then I know that human nature is good. Okay, then I'm a more virtuous people. Or I understand that the ghost, what's ghost like and what the heaven like, and then I'm more virtuous. It's just not possible, because the virtue asks you to do good things for the people that are real, that are around you, like your friends, your parents, your subordinates, your upper how to say, your boss, right? So if you only study these kind of invisible things or the abstract things, it just not helpful for your cultivation.
Yeah, so I think it's also related, as you said, to him being down to earth and maybe having a more realistic psychology of having the insight that, yeah, just knowing something or saying something is maybe not sufficient to really cultivate your character. So he just focuses on rituals and doing that sort of during his whole life, right? It's a long process.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So we certainly made clear that self-cultivation is key and very important to Confucius. And now, of course, the question comes up, okay, but then how do we do it? How do we cultivate ourselves, and sort of then maybe ultimately what do we reach when we get there, so to say? But so let's just go and see how can we actually cultivate ourselves, right? So let's go to our next passage. Okay, let's read 12.1.
颜渊问仁，子曰：克己复礼为仁，一日克己复礼，天下归仁焉。为人由己而由人乎哉？颜渊曰：请问其目。子曰：非礼勿视，非礼勿听，非礼勿言，非礼勿动。颜渊曰：回虽不敏，请示斯语矣。
Yuan Yuan asked about benevolence. The master said, to return to the observance of the rites through overcoming the self constitutes benevolence. If for a single day a man could return to the observance of the rites through overcoming himself, then the whole empire would consider benevolence to be his. However, the practice of benevolence depends on oneself alone and not on others. Yuan Yuan said, I should like you to list the items. The master said, do not look unless it is in accordance with the rites. Do not listen unless it is in accordance with the rites. Do not speak unless it is in accordance with the rites. Do not move unless it is in accordance with the rites. Yuan Yuan said, though I am not quick, I shall direct my efforts towards what you have said. All right. Yeah, it was a long passage, very informative, a lot to unpack there. Where would you like to start?
Well, I think maybe we should introduce Yan Yuan first. Actually, this is Confucius' favorite student, and Confucius will think that this student has the best practice of Ren, of benevolence, and so I think that is also the reason why a lot of scholars will take this chapter very seriously, because they think since this is the question from the best student, then Confucius will give the best answer, right? And also later we will see that a lot of students ask Confucius about what Ren is, what benevolence is, and Confucius, quite different from the teacher nowadays. He gave different answer to different questions to different students, because actually he wants to point out that the problems of each student, that he think the students specifically need something to work on. And so in this chapter, Confucius think that Yan Yuan should constrain himself, should have some self have some self limitation, and go back to the rituals, go back to the rite. And Yan Yuan is a very smart student, so when he was given this first answer, he want to know the more detailed requirements of becoming benevolence. And then Confucius tell him to I think it's about to apply this kind of relevance into every part of his life, because he said, do not look, right, unless it's accordance with the rites. Do not listen, or do not speak, or do not move. And actually, that is what you do every day. That is all. I mean, during the day, you just look, you listen, you speak, you move. So he used these 4 sentences to conclude that everything you do in your daily life, you need to follow the rites. And I think if Yan Yuan, if this top student can follow the rites without deliberation, he will become the level that Confucius reached at age 70, 从心所欲而不逾矩, right, in his autobiography. So this answer is very, very difficult, and it's a really, really high standard, because even for Confucius himself, he meet this standard at age 70, at the last level of his life.
Yeah, well, thank you for elaborating on so many points. I think I will just add or introduce a few concepts that are maybe still a little bit unknown to some of our listeners, because Yuan Yuan asks about benevolence, right? So that's the translation of the Chinese word ren. And so this is the most important virtue in Confucianism. Sometimes it's translated as benevolence, sometimes as human-heartedness, I think even. And so this is very key. And I think it's fair to say that really almost the goal of self-cultivation is benevolence, or ren. So here we can see definitely how these are connected with each other. Another thing I also wanted to add or comment on was that, as you kind of told already, that the rights are so important, so they encompass everything of life. And as I understood, they are also almost the mechanism through which you cultivate yourself, right? So you learn about the rights, you study them as Confucius did, and as he even says, it's almost as though you have to overcome yourself, this kind of like this way of how you are before that, and then you will become benevolent. So yeah, it's a very long process, and it is self transformation in a sense. I think.
Yes, I think because I mean from the very beginning, and everyone is a barbarian, right? Everyone just do not know the rules, do not know the words, do not know the classics. We are just doing what they want, but then follow this process. Maybe at first you don't know why you should do it. Maybe you don't know why I should follow this right, but gradually, as you really know, okay, I obey these rules, and gradually as time goes by and you become older, and you understand that because the right, because you do not look unless some people unless it's follow the rules. For example, maybe we will understand that when this, I just give a maybe not so properly, maybe when this lady is changing clothes and I should not look at her. And actually, because this shows your respect for his maybe privacy, maybe for his room, or maybe also for social, uh, etiquette. I don't know, a social, how to say, the being polite,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and also other standards, like not listen. Maybe it's because other people's are talking about something about themselves, or maybe that thing is for their upper class but not from you for you, or maybe do not speak something not properly, then that is against the rituals, that should not be, the words should not uh, come out from you. So I think Confucius emphasized that um, although that becoming Ren seems like a very high level or lifetime goal, but the process is from a little baby step in your everyday life. And also another point that he emphasized in this paragraph is that he says that um, the practice of benevolence depends on oneself alone and not on others. So he actually, I think he implies that we should not expect the society to make the people benevolent, because benevolence is coming from inside. So maybe we can have this kind of rule that say when your parents pass away, you should mourn for them for 3 years, right? We have these social rules, but this kind of rule cannot guarantee that these people will become benevolent, because practice of benevolence can only be depends on these people. If he is truly sad for his parents, then he is benevolent. But if he's not sad, or maybe he's happy that his parents passed away, so nobody could restrain him, the society could do nothing to push him to become benevolent. So I think that's also an important part.
Right. So society and the rules cannot guarantee that someone cultivates him or herself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately on the person. But I think it's also interesting to add that we clearly see here, and also in many other passages, Confucius' work, that he is actually talking to his students. So it maybe not logically applies, but it seems to suggest that actually the students, at least, they need a master, right? They need someone who tells them how to behave, and also in very particular situations, right? Often in the very particular person, as you said, needs a different advice or something different to be told than any other person. So I think it's interesting that yes, um, the goal or the motivation to cultivate yourself has to come from yourself. You still might need either a master or the classics to tell you, because it's, as we've talked about before, it's also about fine tuning, right? So it's not just an abstract rule that you have to follow in every situation. It seems to be much more fine tuned that, yeah, in this situation, you look away from the lady. In this other situation, you act differently. And it depends on context in so many different ways that I guess it's almost necessary to really go through these different situations. And another point that another recent scholar, David Wong, mentioned in his article, that it's not just that you kind of cultivate yourself with others here, but that, well, he called it exemplarism. So because you almost need to know how to act in different situations, a role model is actually something that makes much more sense. And often I think in passages, Confucius, some passages about Confucius are where he sets the example, right? That he's in a way acting so well, or feeling the rituals so well, and also in a way acts as an example to his students.
Yes.
Great. So let me ask you a question, because I think we have been talking now already for an hour, even though time went away very quickly and was very interesting. Do we want to go through the further passages here as we originally had planned, or maybe go just one more passage and then maybe go to the life part where we discuss self-cultivation? What do you
Yes, I
think?
think maybe we just go one more
Yeah,
chapter and then we go the
sure.
other part.
Good. And so the question is, do we want to go to one of the following passages, or I thought maybe one little passage would be is where we can see that even Confucius himself sometimes goes astray. So what would you prefer? Which passage would you like to still
Yes,
read?
I can follow yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, the point here that you really wanted to make is that we would have read more passages where we would have seen that each student gets a different answer, right, of what benevolence is.
Mm-hmm.
And the point being is that they might need different answers. Okay, and here, so we go to 7.31. Actually, I just wanted to focus on the last paragraph. Do we want to just read that, maybe?
OK，
Or
乌马期已到，子曰：秋也信，苟有过，人必知之。
when Wu Ma-zhi recounted this to him, the master said, I am a fortunate man. Whenever I make a mistake, other people are sure to notice it. And here the reason why I thought it's important to talk about it is because first it shows that even Confucius isn't perfect. He's not a perfect role model, maybe. And then also this other part that I was trying to mention, that it seems even for him, it's almost necessary to be in relationship with others, that when he goes astray or when he makes a mistake, others can point out and he can refine himself even better.
Yeah, so even the even the virtuous people, they need a community, right?
Right, right,
They
right.
need a community of other virtuous people so they can help each other to cultivate more. Because since cultivation is not it's not like you take an exam, you study for some time and then you take this exam and you got a good grade and it's done. It's not the case. Actually, this is a lifelong journey. Maybe I think even at the last moment of your life, you cannot confidently say, "Okay, I'm fully cultivated." Right. So if someone can help you along this journey is very important. And also the last sentence have another explanation in terms of 人必知之. So the kind of translation that you read take 知 as no, and the other 知 means the mistake, the Confucius mistake. But I think another translation or another understanding is that the first 知, the first 知 means let somebody know, and the other 知 means Confucius. It means that Confucius say that I'm so lucky. If I have mistake, someone would let me know that I have a mistake.
Right.
Yeah, I think this translation makes more sense. Because it points out that it's not just, okay, someone will notice that I have a mistake, but it means that some people will let me know that I have a mistake. I need to work on this.
Yeah, great. That was also the interpretation that I was going with, but thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. Yeah, great. So I think that was great discussion about the passages. So maybe we can, for the last part, talk about now what we do with it in the time that we are in. And yeah, I think just the important, interesting real life question would be, okay, how relevant is self-cultivation today? And maybe we could also ask how relevant is it in China, and how in Western countries where I have lived, and maybe can say something about that.
I think nowadays it's really hard to how do you say, assess the level of self cultivation, right? Because it's such an individual things. But I think we can only observe it from the social level. For example, if we found that people on the street follow the rules more, if they just said, okay, you go first, or maybe I can wait a little bit later. So on this social level, I would say the self cultivation have a lot of challenges recent years in China. Since the reform and opening era, China put more emphasis on economic growth, and then people will we will respect those people who earn more money or people who live in bigger house. But um, sometimes but before, I think some people, if they're poor but they're virtuous, I think they're widely respected. But nowadays, I mean, some people will still respect those people, but some other voice will say that, is it worth it? Is it why can he just make more money? Why can't he be more wealthy? So I think it's quite challenging. So it's quite depends on the individual. Just like Confucius said, 为人由己.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that that's the case. Also, Switzerland or in other Western countries, that of course some people, they choose materialism, or the way in which you can make yourself visibly successful or attractive to really go after money or fame or things like that. That's always a possibility. I think it's interesting, right? As I have understood Confucius, it's certainly you shouldn't prioritize that over virtue. But as I have understood him, it's not necessarily that people who are rich or wealthy are necessarily not virtuous. It's just that the priority is virtuous. And if you can still manage to maybe somehow be successful, it's fine too. And as you pointed out, it's very hard to assess that. It's hard to know what the individual person not just thinks but feels. And as we have seen, Confucius really emphasized, you don't just go through the motions, you don't just have the ritual. It's about how you feel, how you cultivate yourself. So from the outside, it's probably not so easy to know maybe how cultivated a person is. I think here in the West, it's, yeah, as I perceive it, a lot of notion about, yeah, your individual journey and your individuality to live that, to express that. Um, that's often seen as something that you already have and you kind of have to express it, or seen as that. And it might not exactly be what Confucius has imagined, of course, because it's a long process and rituals and norms and so on. In the broader sense, though, of course, some people choose to live virtuously, or of course, always to one degree or another. But then it brings me to my second question, which is: do you think that Confucius, if he would look at different countries or societies that haven't read the Confucian classics and so on, but somebody who still, of course, trying to be a moral person and be virtuous, but maybe in another culture, but in a different framework, and really, according to his or her own values and thinking, really puts effort into that and not just, fame and money. Do you think he would see this person as a Dünze or as a cultivated person?
Mm, I think yes. Because I mean, in China, there are. I think maybe there are some peasants. Some people who live in the countryside. Maybe they do not have much knowledge or much how to say education. But I think they are just naturally kind. They are
Mm,
naturally think that okay, I should be good to
mm,
my neighbor. I should be good to my parents, to my uh to my children. Because although they do not read the classic, they do not read the dialects, but they grow up in this whole atmosphere of Confucius. Because I think that the whole Chinese society is soaked it
mm-hmm.
by the
Sure.
by the Confucius philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything we do, like how we treat the elders, how we treat the children, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's all just influenced, so much
Mm-hmm.
influenced by the
Mm-hmm.
Confucius ideas. So even though you don't read the book, but actually you are influenced by the book or
Yeah.
influenced by this culture, by this
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but there is one setback about this case is that if you do not read the book, you do not study the book, you do not reflect the book, maybe you can naturally be good. But if you miss something and you meet, for example, some accident happened, like you do something good, then somebody treat bad to you, then uh, you will become hesitant whether you
Mm-hmm.
should stay
Sure.
stay my position, whether I should
Mm-hmm.
continue to be this kind of uh this kind of cultivation or not. You will shake your stance.
Right. You
But
will
I
not
think if
stand.
you, yes, shake your stand, you cannot be so strong-minded. But if you study Confucius ideas and you reflect and you know why you are doing this,
Mm-hmm.
then you will not so easily influenced by the other opinions.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So you, on one hand, mentioned that it's maybe not um, the only important thing whether you know the classics, but you can be good naturally in a way. Um, but then knowing the classics will make you stand, make you feel confident or certain in even when the situation is difficult. Um, yeah, okay, it's interesting. Yeah, I just had this question of you, because you have the example of a Chinese person not knowing, like a peasant, and still because they are soaked into the culture, then they still somehow get the rituals and the ideas more in an embodied way, right? Because maybe the theory is not the most important sense. I just wonder how Confucius would think about a different society where somebody is not a Confucian but maybe still lives, what would you say, of course respects his or her parents and is a good family member and so on. um, Whether that already is, at least to some degree, a self-cultivated person according to Confucius? That it's kind of like just a question I had,
Mm-hmm.
sort of
I, I
how.
think I think that's a little bit possible, but these people will meet a lot of challenges
Sure.
because if he do not study these kind of thoughts, he just do it by his urge, and then um maybe he will meet a lot of questions. For example, some very practical questions. For example, his parents have uh some debates over or his parents go against the law. Then how would he react? So this I think Confucius also talked about these very practical questions. And if these people can, although in other society or in other country, if he would like to study the thoughts about Confucius, then
Mm,
he will have a more
mm,
detailed, like a textbook about
mm.
how to become
Right.
virtuous when he treat his other people that important in his life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. Obviously, there's some very specific parts of Confucianism,
Mm,
and it's interesting for me to read also, of course, that the self cultivation involves also often, of course, a willingness, then also to reflect, but to study, but then also to reflect on your own behavior very specifically. Of course, that's I think I could maybe assume kind of universal in self cultivation, right? But then you have the very specific philosophy as well, which is of course yeah, fascinating, and also going back to what we said, it's kind of this worldly philosophy, down to earth, and in between the interaction often, as we have seen the cultivated person talking to the students, and they interact, and they always, I was tempted to say, get feedback,
mm-hmm,
very, very specifically. I think this is a very interesting and valuable approach of how to do things. Um, yeah, and of course, while preparing for the episode, I was always wondering, okay, then how can we spot such a person? What will happen with such a person? Probably we can do that in the next episode. Maybe we will talk more about that, also about Ren, about the most important virtue, which has almost looks differently in different situations, right?
mm-hmm, yes.
Um,
A people who is Ren, who has the benevolence, is very flexible.
mm,
Yeah, because benevolence is not just textbook, is everyday life, and everything can happen in your everyday life. So you have to be flexible.
right, right, yeah, yeah. I think this will also be a very interesting episode. Look forward to it. Um, yeah, I guess this is a good place to end the episode. We have cleared a lot of clarified a lot of things, and then have more questions. So
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Um, so let's end it, and thank you so much again for the dialogue and for helping us understand Confucius.
Yeah, thank you too, because I think you add some more aspects, because I think my understanding is more originated from the text. But I think you have read other like commentaries
Mm,
and you add more
mm.
theories on it, and I think they're very helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's very helpful to have both of these perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. Great, great. Okay. That was great. So see you next time. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.